Hi everyone, my name is Hassan and welcome to the webinar, How to Use Amazon Linux Workspaces for Agile Development. To introduce myself a little bit, I'm the lead product manager for Amazon Workspaces. For more than 4 years, I've been working at Amazon building technologies and solutions that make it easy for enterprises to effectively build, test, and deploy services of any size by simply using an internet connection. And they use their internet connection to access their AWS cloud resources like EC2, S3, and EBS. While these enterprises have been using a lot of these server-based infrastructure to serve their end users with web applications and other artifacts, there has been a huge requirement in the field where the desktops were still arcane. People were still using hardware laptops, hardware desktops, and then they started using VDIs where they were using their own managed infrastructure. The issue with all of these infrastructure deployments was that they were expensive, they were hard to recycle, and above all, the security breach risk was so high that enterprises were always scared of a new data breach. So come Amazon Workspaces, we started to develop a solution where enterprises don't have to worry about infrastructure. They don't have to go through longer cycles of image management or go through longer hardware recycle cycles. And now I am focused on providing developers with desktop solutions that get them started fast so they can develop software quickly. These solutions need to be easy to use, and above all, they need to be well integrated with the existing development tools. So in today's webinar, first of all, we will cover why Amazon Linux Workspaces is a fit solution for enterprises. How does that fit into their picture? And how easy it is to manage these Amazon Linux workspaces when you are talking about deploying them in your enterprises. Then we will cover a little bit about what our customers are doing with Amazon Linux workspaces, how they're using it, what type of benefits they're providing to them. We will switch over to go a little bit more detail around what exactly is inside these workspaces. What are the stock images? What type of modifications can you do? What type of capabilities do you get when you deploy an Amazon Linux workspace? Then we will go into image management. So one of the biggest things that we see customers have a lot of hard time doing is managing their images. There's just so many of them. There's just so many different personas that they need to address. There's so many different developers, so many different employees that they need to do the images for. Then we will talk about specifically the developers that exist in your organization, how their needs are aligned with what you are going to do in terms of image building. And then we will have a pretty detailed demo of establishing those images so you can create customized bundles for workspaces, which you can then use to launch a lot of new workspaces. So let's get started. So first of all, Amazon Linux workspaces bring the same benefit of AWS Cloud to your doorstep. So when we talk about laptops, desktops, and VDIs, all of them require a significant amount of CapEx, a significant amount of investment upfront that you have to do, and then the reward is more like 3 years or 4 years down the road. With workspaces, it's pay as you go. You launch an instance, you pay for it, you terminate it, you stop getting charged for it. So there's a huge benefit that you don't really have to spend too much thought into managing your infrastructure or ordering 6 months in advance. So there's a big benefit there. Second, of course, simplicity and ease of management is probably one of the key factors that you will get when you're using any cloud service. So when you look at Amazon Workspaces, they are very, very easy to deploy. You can go into the Workspaces console, and with a few clicks, you have a desktop ready in minutes. As soon as the desktop is ready, it's connected to your directory or your domain, and which means that you can use either your existing IT management tools, or you can create new tools to manage these instances. And by management, I mean you have to set up access, you have to set up security policies, and a lot of other things. The third thing, very important, is security. Of course, security is our priority zero. So we make sure that we have done a good job of providing a secure parameter for your workspaces. So every workspace gets launched in the cloud in your VPC. A user accessing that workspace does not have access to the data directly because the data is in the cloud. And all they're seeing is a pane of glass to which they can interact. So they're seeing a stream of that workspace that is actually sitting in the cloud, and they're interacting with that workspace. So very, very hardened security where you cannot uh, take the data out and you cannot have bad actors in your organization. Finally, we have a very good integration with AWS development tools and other existing development tools. So a workspace essentially is a desktop. In case of Linux workspaces, it's a Linux desktop. That means that any of your existing development tools that are compatible will continue to work with it. And at the same time, since this workspace is sitting in your VPC, you can connect your EC2 and other AWS resources on which your developers are doing their work day in, day out. So second important thing is how fast you can get your developers to start developing. So imagine two scenarios. You have generally in a lot of organizations, they have both on-campus developers and then they have offshore developers. When you talk about on-campus developers, the day that they join, generally it takes a day or two to even get their first laptop. And during that time, they are not working. So with Amazon Linux Workspaces, you can actually automate provisioning of these workspaces through an API. And what that impacts is that your developers can literally walk into the office, they request a workspace, and by the time they'll get to their desk in like 15, 20 minutes, they will have a workspace provision for them on which they can start coding. Then the third thing that customers really, really look for is security and compliance. So security is itself a big task to perform. You have to harden the parameters, you have to encrypt your data, and you have to make sure that there are no leaks. So as I mentioned earlier, that we ensure that your data is staying in your VPC, of course, because the workspace is living in your VPC. And then the compliance piece. So recently, there has been a lot of discussions and efforts about GDPR, about other compliance efforts, and it's hard. It's hard to make sure that your systems are compliant with a certain authority. So with workspaces, you get HIPAA compliant, for example, you get PCI, you get GDPR. So we do all that heavy lifting for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And as a result of all these three things, you are resulted in an IT department that is very agile, that can provide service faster, that can reclaim hardware faster. And in this case, the hardware is workspaces, in the cloud. They can claim that workspace very easily by just clicking a terminate button. And that makes them to focus more on higher level tasks in terms of understanding their users, understanding their use cases and how they can serve their users better and speed up their processes. Let's go a little bit deeper into what is inside an Amazon Linux workspace. So inside an Amazon Linux workspace, first of all, it's prepared for the cloud. It is built inside the cloud for the cloud. And what that means is we took the Amazon Linux 2 base kernel and we modified it into a desktop. So Amazon Linux 2 provides an awesome AMI for server, and they have different flavors of those AMI. And what we do is that we take that army and we make it into a desktop army and basically vend it. Now, there's certain capabilities of this additional desktop army. So first of all, of course, needless to say that once it is built for the cloud, the resource utilization of this army is very, very low. We make sure that the CPU usage is low. We make sure that it's being cognizant about giving you more CPU than use the image using more CPU. Similarly, Amazon Linux workspaces support Docker, so you can actually deploy code even faster. If you have Docker pipelines or related images, you can actually run them on top of this. Then the second important piece, of course, is enterprise readiness. Once we start talking about developers, they are not isolated. They are also working in an enterprise. So they also need to have the same degree and level of support that other employees get when they're working in an enterprise. And what I mean by that is that the image is always updated. It's security hardened. The maintenance updates are flowing through. And of course, the most important part is that we keep the kernel itself 5 years of support so that, when you're developing applications, they don't break backward compatibility. And finally, this is the main delta when we are talking about desktop image, that in the desktop image, you generally need a faster development of packages. You need the bleeding edge of the packages to be on your desktop. But at the same time, you want your server environment to stay consistent and stay in the long-term support mode. So that's exactly what we do. We have Amazon Linux Core and Extras repository. When we're talking about Amazon Linux Core repository, all of the packages in there are LTS so that you can use them for your server workloads. And they are mostly server workload packages. And then we have the Extras repository where you will find the most of the bleeding edge packages, most of the desktop packages that we prepare. And all of this comes at no additional cost. So you just pay for the workspace. You don't pay for the Amazon Linux on top of it. So let's go into image management. So the main thing that we want to cover today is how do you customize your images? How do you make sure that you can scale your images? And how can you set your images in such a way that they can be repeated again and again? So every time you're launching a new workspace, you don't have to go modify it every time. So a big benefit comes from just having that original golden image and preparing it in such a way that you can repeat that process again and again. So first of all, the main thing to remember here is that you always should have a base image. And this base image is really just connected to your AD. It's connected to your corporate network. It can have the certificates that your corporate network requires and those type of things. Please keep in mind that these are not our provided vanilla base image. This is your base image where you are adding your network connectivity and access controls in it. Then, once you have this base image, a best practice is to create several subsequent images with different software applications for different types of developers. So frequently, when you are in an organization, you will notice that there are different types of developers. Some developers are doing Java work, some are doing C++ work. So you need probably a different image for all of these different type of developers. So the point is that you have a base image and then you create these different types of images for different developers. And finally, of course, you want to keep your images continuously maintained. And by continuous maintenance, it means that you are continuously upgrading your image to the latest kernel, to the latest security patch, and latest software if you have some sort of software enforcement. And the need for this is there because image is a static artifact. whereas a workspace is a living artifact. So when you have a static artifact of this image, you need a way to upgrade it so it doesn't become outdated, so it doesn't become vulnerable because there's been so many software updates. So let's talk a little bit about what developer types are generally existing in the enterprise. There are a lot of developer types, of course, that do different sorts of developments. I handpicked four of the top ones that I believe are most common occurrence. Even here at Amazon, we have a huge set of developers who work on these type of applications day in, day out. So let's talk a little bit about the .NET developer. So a .NET developer requires .NET Core. This is a recently launched a product that was launched for Amazon Linux, which lets you write code for .NET. Then you need, of course, PowerShell core. Then you have Visual Studio Code, which is pretty common and famous to write .NET code. Um, of course, we have the AWS CLI, AWS .NET SDK, and you can also add things like Mono or Wine in case you wanted to test something, if you want to test something right on your box on your desktop, or you can choose to ship your code to an EC2 instance and test it there. The second type of developer, which is very, very common, is a Java developer. And generally, Java developers need OpenJDK, Eclipse, AWS Java SDK, and AWS CLI. Now, OpenJDK, I would like to call it out, is already prepared inside our Army, so you don't have to actually add anything there. The rest of the tools you will probably have to add, and so is AWS CLI. AWS CLI is already present in our Army. Then we have the Go developers who require Go runtime, Atom, and AWS SDK and CLIs. And then finally, I picked Win32 developers. There are still a lot of enterprises that heavily rely on Win32 applications and testing them. So for those developers, it's kind of important to have Wine so that they can build code and test it then and there. Then they have Visual Studio Code as well as AWS CLI. So let's take one example of a Java developer, and let's see how we will actually implement this code into their environment. How will we prepare these tools for them, and how you as an IT admin or even as a developer will create a repeatable custom bundle for workspaces that you can continuously use to set up more and more workspaces. So first of all, again, we already covered that we have OpenJDK, Eclipse, AWS Java SDK, and AWS CLI. These are the four tools that we are going to cover in creating this custom bundle. As I mentioned earlier, OpenJDK is already there. Eclipse is already available online. We will actually install it on our machine. And Java SDK, we will also look at the AWS toolkit for Eclipse, and AWS CLI is already existing. So to take a step back, how the imaging process works with workspaces is basically you launch an Amazon Linux workspace. Once you have launched this workspace, you enter it, you log into this workspace. And once you're inside the workspace, you modify it as you please. You modify it by installing applications. You can change settings. You can change the UI. You can do any customization that you want, entirely up to you. And then you basically create a custom image from it. I would like to point out here that the custom image only takes all the stuff that you have put in the slash directory. It does not take anything from the slash home directory. And there's a reason for it. The slash directory, in our case, is connected to user volume. So for a lot of people who are new to workspaces, workspaces comes with two volumes. One is the root volume and one is the user volume. For the root volume, it's the slash directory, and for the user volume, it's the slash home directory. Now, when we are creating images, we want to keep everything in the slash directory, but we don't want to keep anything in the slash home directory. And the reason for that is that any user data, any of the things that you have put that are user specific, you don't want that to be part of your image. So we will go through this whole process in the demo in a little bit. Then a key couple things that people generally do. They install Docker images, they install a bunch of other IDEs, they install Atom and all of these tools. So the point being that all of this, once you have customized your workspace, is going to become an image, an artifact of that workspace that you can actually use to launch more similar workspaces. So you can think of this as a cloning. So with that, we will enter into our demo. And with the demo, I would like to show you the whole process of how you will set up a workspace, how you will customize, how you will create a custom image from that workspace. And once that custom image is completed, how can you use that custom image to provide more workspaces? Okay, so let's start with the AWS Workspaces console. So once you open a console, you will go into the services tab. You will open your Workspaces console, and you will see something like this. You can go into Launch Workspaces. I have a few directories set up that I can use. So I'll just use the Linux demo directory. I go into the next step. Because all of the workspaces, remember, are domain joined. All of the workspaces are connected to an Active Directory. And so is the case with Linux. And that's what makes Amazon Linux workspaces so easy to use, is because you can connect them to your existing enterprise domains. You can connect them to your existing Active Directory artifacts and basically manage them just like a regular computer object. So that whole process, I already have a directory set up, but once you are doing a fresh run, you will get the option to set up a directory. Once you have a directory, of course, you need to create a username. So you can create a username here. Just give it my name, and I can put some email address here. So as soon as I have this user created, I can go into the next step. It is going to show you all the bundles that we provide. So you can see that we have bundles that have CPU from 1 CPU all the way to 8 CPUs, have the memory from 2 GB all the way to 32 gigs. We have root volumes pre-configured to these standards. However, you can actually increase your root volume to up to 1,000 GB, and for both root and user volume. So we recently actually launched yesterday the Power Pro bundle, which is the 8 CPU and 32 gig memory. So we will work with this bundle today just because it's new. Um, so once you configure that, you get the option, do you want to set up your workspace as always on workspace or auto stop? So there will be developers in your organization who are regular developers, who are full-time developers. These developers probably would like to use an always on workspace. And then you will also have some freelancers or some offshore developers who are not your full-time developers, but only do project-based work or only do contract-based work. For them, auto-stop workspaces is a great way to save costs. So the difference between these two workspaces is that always on is always running. It's continuously running. You pay one low monthly fee for that, and it's just there always for that for you. A user can use it anytime at any given place. The difference with AutoStop is that in AutoStop, after a certain period of time, which you can configure from here, from 1 all the way to 48 hours, this workspace is going to stop. And by stopping, we mean that it's going to stop your full instance, and the next time when the user comes in, they can log into that instance. So as you can imagine, because the instance is stopped, the first time this user is logging back in, it's going to take about 2 to 3 minutes for the whole boot process to finish. So unlike always on, auto stop workspaces have a first login time that is a bit longer than 2 seconds, which is in case of always on. And the benefit of this is as soon as the work is done, um, the auto stop timer kicks in, it stops the instance, and in effect, it stops the charging for you. For the auto stop workspaces, you pay a low monthly flat fee, and then you pay an hourly fee. This monthly flat fee basically covers your drive storage that we're keeping for you. And in case of always on, the monthly price covers your whole instance usage as well as the drive. You can choose to encrypt your volumes. You can choose to use our provided encryption key, or you can use your customized encryption key. I have set up both. Also, finally, you can put some tags on your workspace. So, you can say that, hey, this is my Java developer tag, or you can say this is my developer type, and then you can say this is my Java developer. And you can also add multiple tabs. So you can say that this developer is a developer who works on your web apps. So you can say that is it web, office apps. You can put the value as web. This developer does web development. Then we go to the next step. This is just a review step. You review your settings and you basically click launch. I have already launched a workspace, so I'm going to use that workspace for the demo here. Um, but it takes generally 5 to 10 minutes to launch a new workspace from here. So let's switch into the workspace that I have launched. So for you to access the workspace, first of all, as soon as you click that launch button, and once the workspace is ready for you or your developer, it is going to send you an email. So remember the email that I configured there? It is going to send you an email there stating that you need to set up your password. And it will also give you a link to this page, which is the clients.amazonworkspaces.com. On this page, you can download clients. Once you have downloaded a client, you need one more piece, which is your registry code, which is the one that is generated from your directory. So when you have that email sent out to you or your developer, they will see a registration code over there, and they need to use that code so our client can understand which directory you are trying to connect to. Because a developer can actually be having multiple workspaces which are residing in different directories. So the benefit of that piece comes when you have a situation where one directory is your test directory, where you only want to test stuff, and then you have one directory, which is your production directory, which is connected to all your corporate network. So this way your developer can actually go run a code in the test directory and at the same time go do their regular work in the corp connected environment. So we provide different types of clients that you can use to access Amazon Linux workspaces. So you can access it through Windows, iPad, Mac OS, and all these different things. I would like to call out that web access is not currently supported for Amazon Linux workspaces, but it is a feature request to our team. So once that whole piece is done, you will have this workspaces client. And this workspaces client, you can basically use this to kind of find your registration. This is the registration code I was talking about. Once you have this, you can register. It will take you here. And let me disconnect from this for a second so we can see the flow. And here you will enter the password that you or your user set up from that email that we sent out to you. So once we log into this workspace, this is going to be your vanilla image. This is the base image that I used to launch Amazon Linux Workspaces. So this Linux workspace is effectively, like I mentioned, is using our own variant of Mate desktop. So a lot of those artifacts you're going to see here are a modified version of Mate. So let's get started in setting up this workspace the way that we want to do it for our Java developer. and let's create a custom image from it. So first of all, as we discussed, that there are certain needs of a Java developer, and two of the needs that we will cover here is AWS Toolkit and Eclipse IDE. So let's go ahead and install Eclipse. We can go to Eclipse, Eclipse. All right. So we can go to this page. We can go and download this simple 64-bit version. It is going to automatically select which file is the most appropriate for you. I have downloaded it in my download directory. I will open my toolkit, or sorry, my terminal, and here I will go into my download directory. As you can see, I have Eclipse written here. So I will go and unextract this file. Now I have it extracted out. Then I will go into my download directory again and go to the installer, install Eclipse. So I just picked Java because we're covering the Java use case. And while it's installing, we can go over here and look for our AWS Eclipse toolkit. So once we get to this toolkit, it's very simple to install it. We will say agreed. And again, while it's installing, we can go review something on the Workspaces images side. So as I mentioned earlier, as I was covering in the talk, um, we have certain requirements from a custom image. And I was talking about how your root drive is, or the slash drive or the root volume will always going to be preserved when you're trying to build a custom image. And your user volume or slash home is going to be the one that we throw away. So we have this link, you can search it online, Workspaces Custom Bundles, which prescribes to you what are those specific things that we will wipe out. And I wanted to quickly go through a couple of them. So for example, we don't want suitors to be part of your image because you don't want one access to transfer into another access. So if you have given access to one user, you don't want that access to translate into another user's access. Similarly, we have several pieces like DHCP settings, mail files. All of these files are actually in slash directory under slash var, and we make sure that we remove it because these form the part of the user profile. Similarly, there are some artifacts like PC over IP, which is the agent that we use to connect to your workspace. So there are certain logs in those folders that we need to get rid of. So we wipe those clean. And you can see here that we have the slash home, which is a full drive that we throw away. We also get rid of your keys because, of course, you don't want your keys to be shared across different users. So this is just a basic quick overview. So our Eclipse installer is installed now. We will launch the Eclipse IDE. And now we will try to configure AWS Toolkit on it. So I go here and I can launch this IDE with the default settings. Once I'm in the Eclipse window, you can go to aws.amazon.com/Eclipse. You will see this nice AWS Toolkit for Eclipse. And it's very simple to install. These are the 4 steps to installing AWS Toolkit for Eclipse. So I'm going to follow these steps go to help. Um, we will go into install new software. I will provide this URL. And once I have provided this URL, I will add it, call it AWS Toolkit. And this is going to basically get this file from the website that I provided. Okay, so all these services are currently provided by the AWS Toolkit for Eclipse. So there's AWS Core Management Tools, there's AWS Development Tools, AWS Deployment Tools, as well as Android Development Kit and Data Management Tools. So a quick overview, you can have core management tools, you will have CloudFormation and simple workflows. So you can define your CloudFormation templates and simple workflows that you can use to fire up your infrastructure. In the deployment tools, you will have Code Deploy plugin, you will have Elastic Beanstalk, you will have Lambda plugin, as well as OpsWorks plugin. Then you will have developer tools in which you will have code commit, code star. And similarly, you can choose to install SDK for Android, and you can choose to install RDS or Simple DB management. But for now, we're going to keep focusing on the Java development kit. So I'll just press next, and it is going to actually install all of these codes on your local machine. And once this is complete, what I will be able to do is that I will be able to navigate to the AWS Development Toolkit and be able to configure those. So once you have the AWS Toolkit for Eclipse ready, it is going to ask you to input your credentials. And these credentials will let you connect to all your AWS resources. So here you can, of course, put credentials, but a best practice is to not put the credential in the image itself, but rather provide credentials through a separate mechanism or through your AWS console to your developers. And you can use IAM roles, or you can use access key IDs or secret access key to provide those credentials. So now in this step, basically what we did in this image is that we modified the Eclipse, we modified the AWS toolkit, we installed both these artifacts. So this image is not your base image anymore. Now what we're going to do is we're going to see how we can create a customized image from it. And just for fun, we will change the background so we know that this is a different image. So now I'm going to disconnect from this workspace, and I'm going to go back to my console. And in the console, my workspace was this demo one. And as you can see, I have this Power Pro workspace with a bunch of configurations on it, which are automatically done. So once I go there, I will select this workspace. I will go into Actions. I will select Create Image. And it's going to tell you a little bit about what we do when we are doing a customized workspaces image. And it is also going to tell you what we are going to keep and what we're not going to keep. But the more detailed information is available on the website that I shared earlier. So we can call this image as demo one again, and we can name it first Amazon Linux Workspaces image. So now I've issued a command to create an image out of it. On the left-hand side of the Workspaces console, I can now go into the images, and I can see that I have a demo one image being created right now, and it's in the validating phase. Okay, so while this image is being done, we can just use one of the existing custom images that I created. to show you how we can also create a custom bundle from that image. So the station one image is actually an Amazon Linux Workspaces image, and you can see that it's an Amazon Linux 2 base image that we provide. And I can use this image to create a bundle. A Workspaces bundle is effectively a collection of hardware, operating system, and your storage. So inside the hardware, you have EC2 instance, you have the storage, and you have your operating system with all the customization that we did earlier. So in case of here, what we will do is that we will create a bundle from it. So effectively what we are doing is we already have the list of hardware resources that we can choose from. So let's call this demo one bundle. We can put it any description here. So here in the bundle type, I can again select any of the hardware that I require to be part of this bundle. So I'm effectively creating a bundle from a customized way rather than using a default Workspaces bundle provided by us. So I can again, just like we did on the Workspaces side, I can also do the same body of work over in the root volume and user volume space. So I can specify, hey, this is 1 terabyte image. I'll just create a bundle from it. So while this bundle has been created, I can actually go here, and as you can see, I have this bundle populated here. I call that bundle demo one, and this is effectively an existing image that I used to create a bundle. But that existing image came from a customized workspace. Now that you have this bundle, now when you go into launch workspaces, run. The same thing that we did earlier, right? We were trying to launch workspaces and we used a default bundle that was provided by Amazon to launch a workspace. Now we are going to do the same thing, but using your customized bundle rather than the one that is provided by default. And I can go here and here's the screen. So here's where we selected, we selected this Power Pro with Amazon Linux 2 earlier. But now you have a customized bundle. So where you will find it is all the way down here. You will see that I have a lot of customized bundles that I've created from different images. So our customized bundle was demo one. You can see that this demo one has 8 CPUs, 32 gig memory, 1 terabyte, like we said it. You can still modify your root volume because if you choose, you can still handpick which developers get larger volume size, which developers get the lower volume size. You go into next step, same flow, you decide what the running mode is, and eventually you can launch a workspace. So now what happened is the image that you customized, you created a Workspaces custom bundle from it, and now you can launch multiple workspaces from it. So just like we did this for one user, you don't have to do it for one user only. You can actually go back and you can do show me all users in this directory. And I can select a lot of users in here. And I can add all of them together. And then I can go here and all of them gets the same bundle because I chose here. Um, Either way, you can choose different bundles per user as well. So you can do this as well. And once you have this full list of things that you want to create, full list of users that you want to create a workspace for, you can just simply go select what you want in terms of configuration and review and launch Workspace. So to summarize all of what we learned today, Amazon Linux Workspaces lets your developers get started fast using default Workspaces bundles in the first place. But you can also select different hardware options. You can select different billing modes that we discussed today. Once you have this workspace launched, you can also customize it to your liking. Once you have a customized image created from that specific workspace, you can create a custom bundle. And once you have the custom bundle, you can actually scale up and down really, really fast, depending on how fast your developers are coming in or churning out. So with that, I would also like to point to you, if you want to learn more about Amazon Linux Workspaces, you can go to aws.amazon.com/tech talks and go into the end user computing section. In the end user computing section, you will see a preliminary webinar that we did on Amazon Linux Workspaces. So highly recommend you to take a look at that. And with that, we will take some question and answers.